Welcome to Behind the Law with Justin Clark, the show that takes you behind the law and answers your toughest legal questions.
Welcome to Behind the Law, featuring attorney Justin Clark of Gregory and Clark Attorneys at Law. We're taking your calls right now at 407-297-9696 or 855-297-9696. If you're watching the television show, go ahead, call the office right now at 321-282-1055. That's 321-282-1055. Attorney Justin Clark is with me. He is an attorney who cares, and we've been talking about foreclosures, short sales, modifications, money coming to you in the mail from Rust. Last week on the show on radio, we were talking about the fact that, whoops, those original checks were wrong. Now you get a second batch. Have they figured out how to do anything from Cash for Clunkers right? I don't get it.
It's unbelievable. And now, today's an important show, Rob, and I'm disturbed, disgusted, PO'd. I can't think of enough ways to describe how I feel today. And we're going to spend the entire hour talking about this fast-track foreclosure process that is apparently sitting on Governor Rick Scott's desk as we speak. He has a little more time to either decide to veto it or sign it. And what's really disturbing to me, Rob, it seems like there's more support to sign it to fast-track foreclosures. And I'm going to spend the next hour telling you from really a layman's view, someone who's here on the ground doing this every day, what it means, the negative effects of it, and why this thing should be vetoed. There's no doubt about it. Now, there's going to be people that disagree with me. They're going to say, Justin, it's time to let this thing go through. Let's let the foreclosures go through. I would venture to guess no one really knows more about what's going on the ground than I do, and I'm going to tell you why we have to veto this thing, Governor.
From what I can see, and I'm just a host of a show, I am not in the real estate industry, but I've learned a lot from you. I've learned a lot from the other experts. It takes time to get a short sale. It takes time to get a modification. This bill takes away any amount of time that the homeowner, the real estate owner, the taxpayer has, and puts all of the dominoes or the marbles in the bank's back pocket. That's all I can say.
It absolutely does. And I'm going to go through everything that this bill says and what it really is going to do to the process and what effect it's going to have on the homeowner. A lot of these homeowners, and I know people are thinking, well, tell these people to pay their bills and everything will be fine. We don't have to worry about it. These deadbeats. Most of these people fell on hard times in 2008 when a lot of people were having issues. You were probably having issues. And they called the bank and they said, bank, can you please help us? Just help us a little bit. Come on, I lost my job. Can you do anything? And the bank said, of course I can help you. Stop paying your mortgage and we'll talk. And these people since then have been in this rough position trying to work something out with the bank. And a lot of them continue to try to work something out. A short sale, a loan modification, a deed in lieu, these things take time. The Florida legislature overwhelmingly has agreed, both the House and the Senate, to not give these people any time, to put all of these houses back on the market at once, for two big hedge funds to come in and scoop them all up, only to go sell these houses in 2 years and create another huge bust in our real estate market. Watch and see.
I tell you what, you need to chime in on this, 407-297-9696 or 855-297-9696. It's Behind the Law with Justin Clark. Kind of go through some of the highlights of this bill, because I think when people hear what you've got to say, they're going to scratch their heads and say, wait a minute, what was the legislature thinking?
There's nothing good in this bill for homeowners whatsoever. Nothing. One thing kind of good. I'll get to that later, okay? Let me tell you what I think is probably the main part of this bill that's really going to speed up the process. So anytime you don't pay your mortgage, the bank has the ability to foreclose on you, okay? We understand that. We get it. When the bank forecloses, they have to file a foreclosure complaint against you. That gets served on you. The way this bill is set up, it clearly, without any question, no doubt about it, puts all of the responsibility on the defendant to prove that the bank shouldn't come take your house. They can do this 45 days from the date that they file this lawsuit, okay? So the way this is set up, they can literally come take your house in 45 days. That's how this is written. It's called a show cause hearing. It's the bank files their motion, basically, and the judge has to, in his own chambers, without a hearing, review everything that's been filed and say, okay, looks like the bank has everything in order here. I want the defendant to show cause why the bank can't come take their house right now. That's the major thing, and this can happen 45 days. after filing the complaint. It's unbelievable.
Now, this flies in the face of a federal settlement, not one, not two, not three, but
Not
more
20.
federal settlements that have said that the banks were abusing their power. The banks were rubber stamping. The banks didn't have the notes they said they had. One of the largest banks was caught right there red-handed in court by the judge that you didn't have those notes anyway. The other loan company had them. I mean, after all of these discrepancies and everything falling on the fault of the banks, you have a legislature sitting here going, that couldn't be the bank's fault.
I tell you exactly what's going on. I know. Because this thing was done under the guise of darkness. Did you hear anything about it? Did you
It
see
was
any
never talked about.
news article about this one bit until it started happening? Nothing. Not a peep out of it. Here's what happened. Over the last few weeks or a few months, and Rob, you and I have talked about it on the show before, Florida is now the #1 state for foreclosures in the nation, okay? And everyone's like, you know what? We don't want Florida to be #1 in the nation. And they saw California foreclosures going down, and they said, we got to do something. So they said, basically, literally in the middle of the night, it seems like, they pushed this thing through and said, okay, you can just foreclose on people really quick. Oh, but don't worry. Florida is a state where you can also sue people for deficiencies, okay? A lot of states that allow you to foreclose quickly, in exchange for that, the bank can't sue people for deficiencies. Deficiencies is the difference in what you owe the bank and what the house is worth, okay? Now we have a state where you can foreclose very quickly and sue our citizens for a deficiency. Congratulations, guys. I mean, if this thing passes, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, we simply are not going to have time to do modifications and do short sales because they're going to let the banks foreclose in 45 days. But there is a big winner. Don't worry, Rob. There is a big winner in all of this. And I know some of you homeowners association attorneys and HOA presidents out there listening right now. Congratulations. This is a great day for you because the homeowners associations now have so much more power. Okay?
Boy, I'd say.
They already had a lot of power because if you don't pay your HOA, the HOA can sue you and they can come take your house. They can do it in county court. They can do it fast. Now they can do it faster. Let me tell you why. So in a regular foreclosure, the homeowners association is a defendant, okay? Because the bank has to actually sue them for whatever interest they might have. Now the HOA can file a motion to issue the show cause order. The HOA, so maybe the bank doesn't even want to foreclose on you. The HOA can essentially force the judge to drag the defendant homeowner into court and prove that they have any sort of defense. This can happen in 45 days. It can actually happen in 20 days, but 45 days after the filing of the complaint. Congratulations, homeowners associations, you win too. I'm a little fired up today. I'm sorry.
I'm thinking so. Now, we're going to have to take another break, but you can always get legal advice right now by calling Justin's office at 321-282-1055. Associates are standing by. We'll be right back.
You can find more Behind the Law on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Gregory and Clark, where there's plenty of past episodes with valuable information on how to save your home from the mortgage companies. Check it out.
Ask your question live. Tune into FM 96.5 WDBO Sundays at noon and ask Justin your question.
Or I've seen people actually settle a case with A bank, and then B bank comes and sues them later and says, no, they didn't have the authority to take that money. You know, so we have to ensure who the real person is, who really we're dealing with it.
Stay tuned. Justin Clark will be right back with more Behind the Law. Welcome back to Behind the Law, the show that takes you behind the law and answers your toughest legal questions.
Welcome back to another edition of Behind the Law. As always, I'm here with attorney Justin Clark, and today we're talking about the new foreclosure bill the Florida legislature has just passed and how it affects you. Now, let's say you're a bank. If you've set up a modification department, if you have set up a short sale department, why would you even have those people come back to work under the same job description? If this bill passes, there's nothing that can be done on a modification or a short sale that we've experienced in the 3 years we've been doing this show in 45 days.
Nothing. There's nothing that can happen that quickly. You can sue the banks and make them pay $25 billion in settlements to try to punish them, to make them do the right thing and speed along these modifications. Nothing's worked. $25 billion didn't work. So there's nothing you can do to make the loan modification or short sale process go quickly. You can't do it in 45 days, guys. Can't do it. Can't happen.
Let me ask you this. You were a pioneer in defending helping people with modifications, defending people on the bank situation. If you sat down with a client, they got the letter, let's say they got the notification, all right?
Right.
You sit down with them the very next day. So now we're in at 45 days, we're at 44. They sit down with you, they state their case, they show you everything they got, all the letters. In your case history, it's got to have taken more than 45 days just to enter discovery with the bank to figure out whether there was rubber stamping or who had the note.
It essentially gives me not even 5 days, maybe 5 hours to come up with a strategy and a defense strategy to do my discovery and whatever we need to do to make the bank prove that they can actually foreclose on my client. Let me tell you something, guys. These banks sell these loans every other day, it seems like. So my client will come in and I say, hey, who's your lender? I have no idea. It's been sold 30 times. I know that Aurora is suing me, but I'm getting letters from Bank of America. Who knows? Okay? So, I mean, I have to actually prove if my client's going to settle with someone or sign something that that's the person who's actually responsible here. I've seen clients I've seen people actually settle a case with A bank, and then B bank comes and sues them later and says, no, they didn't have the authority to take that money. So we have to ensure who the real person is, who really we're dealing with there. And this is just like, hey guys, come on, this is Florida saying we're over this system. We don't care about the homeowners who have been struggling, who've been trying to work something out. Get rid of it. And Rob, you would think that maybe, okay, well, this only applies to like cases that are filed like after today, right? No, it's retroactive, pal. So,
oh, wow.
All the cases that are already pending, it's just an effort to get rid of everything.
If you're facing a foreclosure and you want to talk to Justin right now about what your future might hold, should the governor sign the bill? At the time of this taping, as far as sources are concerned, this bill is sitting on the governor's desk. There are 15 days he has to sign it or veto it, and this thing could face court challenges. It could face a lot of challenges, but if you want to talk right now, 407-297-9696, the specifics of the bill, 855-297-9696, or you can talk off the air to somebody at the office at 321-282-1055, 321-282-1055. This is scary stuff.
It is for me. And so I already told you that now how it works is essentially it's like if there's a murder trial, the state has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the person killed the other person, right? Well, in a civil lawsuit, it's a similar idea. Whoever is the plaintiff has to prove that they have the right to sue the other person, okay? Not anymore. Not in foreclosures, not in Florida. In Florida foreclosure law, if this passes as of July 1st, 2013, you, the defendant, have to prove that the plaintiff can't just come take your house. I mean, it totally flips everything upside down, the way that the legal system is supposed to work. I don't like it. I'm not for it. I don't understand how a lot of these politicians have just done this. I emailed several asking them to come on the show. Didn't hear back from anyone because I think it's a little controversial. And I don't think there's a few politicians that I've heard locally who have said, we very much support this, but there's been a lot that have been quiet, Mm-hmm. And I tell you, it's going to have a very negative effect for a lot of reasons, and I'm going to tell you about that later.
All right, negative effects coming up. We've got some callers on the line that want to talk about various aspects of short sales, modifications, foreclosures, and just general real estate. So we're going to take a break. We're going to come back and talk with Justin. We're going to talk with you. But if you're having problems with your mortgage that could cost you your home, remember that the offices of Gregory and Clark are your one-stop shop for saving your home. Short sales, foreclosure, bankruptcy, refinancing, it's all under one roof. Call right now, 321-282-1055. We'll be right back.
Behind the Law is pre-recorded for TV, but you can ask your questions live on the radio Sundays at noon on News 96.5. And if you need legal advice right now, Justin has associates standing by. Just give the offices of Gregory and Clark a call at 321-282-1055.
And I'm trying to get rid of my PMI, but I've been getting the runaround, and I've since then paid the mortgage down more than 78% of the original sale price.
Stay tuned. Justin Clark will be right back with more Behind the Law. Welcome back to Behind the Law, the show that takes you behind the law and answers your toughest legal questions.
Welcome back. Yes, it is Behind the Law featuring Justin Clark of Gregory and Clark, 407-297-9696 or 855-297-9696. Those are the numbers right here back at the office. There are associates taking your calls at 321-282-1055. That's 321-282-1055. Florida legislature, and a pretty bipartisan majority, passed a bill in the House and the Senate. It sits at this time, at airtime. It is sitting on the governor's desk. At last I researched this morning, there's 15 more days for him to make a decision on this bill. And it's a bill that's been getting no publicity in the time that there was legislation on this. There was no discussion of it. There was a lot of discussion on the matrimony bill and the ethanol bill. Nothing really about the speeding up the foreclosure bill. And now there's an awful lot of attorneys and a lot of public sentiment that are yelling and screaming, saying there's problems with this bill and what's going to happen. So let's talk about it.
I finally calmed down a little bit now, so I'll talk a little slower, maybe a little more eloquent about the bill, because it does get me a little fired up, because it's an important thing for my clients especially. Now, I've got thousands of clients sitting there who this affects, so maybe I care a little bit more than other people. But go to the calls, and we'll come back.
Well, let's go to Rick in Orlando. Rick, what is your question for Attorney Justin Clark?
First of all, thank you for taking my call. It's not related to any kind of like a bankruptcy or anything, but I purchased a home back in 2004, and since then I didn't have, whatever it was to put down, so I financed the whole thing. But since I've owned the home in 2004, I've never been late on the payment, and never rented it out, and actually paid extra through an equity accelerator program. And I'm trying to get rid of my PMI, but I've been getting the runaround, and I've since then paid the mortgage down more than 78% of the original sale price. So I'd like to get some direction on what I should do from there.
Sure.
I've already sent them letters to cancel the PMI, but they're kind of stubborn about it.
What's the house worth now?
That's a good question. They say that the homes in my neighborhood are selling for almost more than what I purchased the home for.
I mean, mortgage insurance is not something that helps the consumer. I think we all understand that at this point. Mortgage insurance protects the bank that lends you the money. They often require mortgage insurance if you aren't able to put down the typical 20%, although there are a lot of programs avoiding it. In your actual note, it's going to tell you the requirements for getting rid of that mortgage insurance. Now, if you bought in 2004 and you're not significantly underwater, you might seriously want to look into a refinance, and you can probably get rid of the mortgage insurance altogether. But also, depending on what the mortgage says, you can potentially get rid of it altogether if your house is no longer underwater by a certain percentage. And sometimes it even says if your house has increased in value since the time you bought it. There are two different ways to look at it. I would probably call a mortgage person about possibly refinancing it altogether at a better rate. Look into a modification, and try to get rid of the mortgage insurance, because it doesn't help you at all. It just costs you money.
Here's something to think about. Are you working on a short sale? Well, whether you're working on a short sale or buying, the offices of Gregory and Clark can help you. Just give their office a call right now at 321-282-1055. We'll be right back.
You can find more Behind the Law on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Gregory and Clark, where there's plenty of past episodes with valuable information on how to save your home from the mortgage companies. Check it out.
But now in 2012, we started getting letters from a servicing company saying that we still owe a mortgage. And I want to know if that's legal or not.
Stay tuned. Justin Clark will be right back with more Behind the Law. Welcome back to Behind the Law, the show that takes you behind the law and answers your toughest legal questions.
And George in Polk County. George, how can we help you?
Hey, how you doing, guys?
What's up, George?
On?
Welcome in.
Listen, I kind of got a legal question.
We
filed for bankruptcy in 2010.
Okay.
We got the bankruptcy discharge, and we also were in the process of being foreclosed on. Well, we know for a fact that the discharge was in May. The foreclosure went through, and it went for sale on the county courthouse in June. But now in 2012, we started getting letters from a servicing company saying that we still owe a mortgage. and I want to know if that's legal or not.
So the house is totally gone, you're telling me. It went through foreclosure. It went through a foreclosure auction, and someone else bought it, or it went back to the bank, right?
Well, it's still up for sale, I guess, with the bank, but we no longer have it. We've already been served. We've already been notified that it's went on the courthouse steps twice in an auction.
Yeah.
It still hasn't gotten purchased. But the two mortgages we had on it, a first and a second, were actually discharged in a bankruptcy hearing.
Do you have any interest in living in this property, or are you totally over it?
We were totally over it. Actually, when we went to the bankruptcy hearing, we actually surrendered it.
Yeah, good. I mean, what happens is it sounds like you did a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. And in 2010, you could not strip a second mortgage in a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. And I certainly hope you would not have reaffirmed either of those mortgages. So, in essence, you don't owe the money. However, you still own the house until the bankruptcy until the foreclosure completely goes through. And it sounds like there's been an issue in getting the foreclosure to go totally through, and at the foreclosure auction, for whatever reason, it's been stopped. So you need to, you might want to talk to me, first of all, 321-282-1055, and let's see how to get them to complete that foreclosure or potentially do something else to avoid the foreclosure being on your credit report. But as long as you didn't reaffirm those two mortgages in that bankruptcy, they can't sue you for money damages, which is probably the most important thing to you.
All right, very good. Thank you so much for the call. 407-297-9696 on the radio. 855-297-9696 is toll-free from anywhere. And, of course, if you want to call the office anytime, 321-282-1055, 321-282-1055. Back to the bill.
All right, so there's several points that I'm going to make on this. The first one is that now it's up to the defendant, the homeowner, to prove that prove that they have any sort of defense whatsoever. Totally contradicting everything you've ever heard in law school or on any legal show you might watch at 9 p.m. on Tuesdays or whatever. So now it's really on the defendant to prove that the bank can't foreclose on them. It doesn't make any sense. And thank you, Florida legislator, for that. And you might have 45 days left.
Well, that's it for this week's edition of Behind the Law with Justin Clark. If you still have any questions, don't wait for next week's show. Just give the offices of Gregory and Clark a call right now at 321-282-1055.
Thank you for watching Behind the Law with Justin Clark. Be sure to join us again next week as Justin takes you behind the law and answers your legal questions.